Last time we ended with, accordingly, if you take the meaning of arising in the phrase, the arising of things from Chandrakirti's passage, if you take that to be mere production, mere production, production is full of meaning. Production, arise. It indicates the first reason. If you take it to be establishment or existence, it indicates the two latter reasons. So, an awful lot is read into what Chandrakirti said. And then Jang-kya shows us that it should be read into what he says by, and you've already seen this, and I frankly don't know how much I need to talk about it. Causes and conditions then means substantial cause and corporative conditions. So the substantial cause is a seed, for instance, of a sprout. And as I've said several times earlier, but it always comes to my mind, out behind our house in Barrington, Rhode Island, when I first saw, and it's really odd that in my former lifetime I never saw a seed that had a little sprout sitting outside of sitting, a seed with a sprout. There's a point at which you have the two halves of the seed and the sprout with it. And I was stunned as a little kid. Oh, there's the seed with the sprout. They exist simultaneously. And that's why I so many times, instead of saying sprout, I say shoot, or the whole stalk, to make sure that the seed, the two halves of the seed, are no longer there. Because I got hung up, here's the circumstance of the translator. I got hung up. Oh, the seed and the sprout are simultaneous. So it carried over to my translation days. And what are the corporative conditions? The water. And instead of translating, this other word as fertilizer, since we're back to old Tibet, it's manure. Manure. Update it would be fertilizer, I suppose, but why update it? Translate what's there, and so forth. Then it indicates the former reason, the first one. And if you take causes and conditions to mean the cause of something's achieving its own entity, so then, if it was, if I was writing it, I might put cause in quotes. Its basis of imputation, basis of designation or imputation, or its parts, or the collection of the parts. As Tsongkhapa says in his Gombarapso, illumination of Chandrakirti's thought. Neither the parts nor the collection of the parts are the thing. can't just say the parts, but neither the parts nor the collection of the parts. You see, they're the basis of imputation, are not the object imputed. The object imputed is the car, for instance. Not the name car, but the car. That's like, what? It's pretty easy to understand if you think that what you're imputing is the name car. But if what you're imputing, what you're designating, is not the label, I'm here scolding other translators. I seldom do that. So it certainly looks like that in many texts. It's not the label, but the thing. It's like, what? As Nguyen Linh used to say, the basis of imputation. I got to get my two hands in the picture. How can I do that? The basis of imputation and the object imputed. He would get his two hands apart. How can that be? Then it indicates the middle reason. And if you take causes and conditions, now it's in quotes. Oh, sorry. Cause. Okay, cause wasn't. Well, okay. To be the respective conceptual consciousness. Now that's way over on the subject side. That imputes a phenomenon. Okay, cause. Yeah, all right. Now that's way over on the subject side. That imputes a phenomenon. Then it indicates the last reason. That's fine. Yeah, it's not basis of imputation. Sorry. Getting my mind isn't quite with the text yet. Oof. But then,
Jeffrey, can I ask you a question?
please. Please.
I've heard some say that you to be designated on a valid basis of designation. But that seems very reifying to me. What do you make of that, and why do you think those Prasangika lamas say that? Not all of them say
I think it's pretty simple. You've got to have the right basis of designation. It's got to be a suitable basis of designation. You can't be getting it wrong. If you see if what is actually there is a hose and you impute a snake, you don't have the right basis of designation. I think it's as simple as
but
that.
then there's the object. But then there must be something on the side of the object that makes it that thing. So then you wind up being a Svatantrika.
Yeah, I got that feeling when I was reading His Holiness, the note from How to See Yourself as You Really Are, that comes up in this note from His Holiness, that I took from His Holiness's book, that comes up not too far below. That I say, aha, you're beginning to look like a Swatantrika. So somehow having the right basis of imputation, the proper basis of imputation, that you can't just impute anything on anything, that there still has to be validity, that this doesn't turn you into an autonomist. I'm just repeating your question as if this is giving you an answer. You know, that's one clever answerer's, bogus answerer's mode of answering. And saying the next bogus way will be, that's apt to come up later. And maybe a slightly less bogus will be, let's see if it comes up, if an answer to this comes up in one of our remaining chapters. That's less bogus. So there's no question, now this will be even less bogus, that there has to be a coordination between basis of designation and object designated. Otherwise, there's no chance to have valid cognition, etc.
Oh, you're maybe an incarnation of Baba Vivek.
No, I'm a dyed-in-the-wool. You heard it in India, right in the throne area of Gandhan. I'm what did I call myself? I didn't say severe enthusiast, a Gelupa supreme enthusiast, a great enthusiast of Tsongkhapa. Now I didn't, what did I say? Not supreme or great. I had some other word. Strong, a great enthusiast. Great enthusiast of Tsongkhapa. So there's no question that merely having this coordination doesn't turn one into an autonomist. So why doesn't it? And it doesn't because you're not making the basis of designation as existing, as existing under its own power, as existing from its own side, as having a common mode of abiding. Common meaning shared. Well, let's work on that. I won't pretend it's easy. So, good question. But that's not enough to make things existing in their own right. So we'll get back to this later. Hold it in abeyance. Now,
I'm sure it must come later.
Well, let's hope it does. Let's hope that something will trigger. Well, something will spark. Oh, that's what it is. really. I worked with some, I'm glad you asked the question, very glad. I worked with probably, I don't know, some maybe 4 Tibetan doctors. A lot with Yeshe Dundan, produced what I guess is still the classic book, and, that everybody buys. And brought him to the States at least twice anyway. Worked with a famous female doctor, brought her once. Worked with the guy who made the medicines back in that day. Didn't bring him here. Worked with Dr. Chadha, translated for him in the States. What are we up to? 4. That's 4. And they could always do something that I never, expected. They could do something really good that would make me want them to do something else. And then they couldn't do that. And thank you for asking, but I couldn't come up with the easy answer. But keep asking, because there may be something else that I could come up with the easy answer. Don't stop. But once you get 10 in a row where I can't do it, then maybe you say, well, we've gotten all he has. Then Jang-kya shows off a little and says there are a lot of people with very sharp pendita hats, very sharp points, who haven't understood this, blah, blah, blah. And then Hopkins pipes in and says, there's another quote where Chondakirti talks about mere conditionality, where he talks about cause and effect depending upon each other. And there's no way that effects can depend upon causes, because effects arise after causes. And this kind of conditionality, and that paragraph's clear in and of itself, I presume, unless there's something in that one. I've removed the words refers to and put in is or are. Gotten tired of refers to, because words themselves don't refer to something. Causes and conditions are the parts of an object. Okay, Jang-kya continues down a little bit more. Kathy Rogers and I are at a part where John Shiva refers to in Sutra, I believe it is, or at least, whatever. Gosh, forget it so soon, like yesterday. 7 types of negative terms. And one type of negative term is small. Small here, when Tsongkhapa calls his own small or medium exposition of the stages of the path. But when somebody says, oh, that's small hotel, that small motel, that small restaurant, you see it's a negative term. It's a put down. And that's one type of negative. It's a quite nice list of negatives. As I'll have to, when we go over it again, remember, I will be reminded of whether it comes out of Sutra or just Dharmakirti. But it's a very nice psychological, literary listing of put-downs and so forth that end up as being negative terms. But here, of course, it isn't. It's small and or middle length. The same text is referred to as either small or middle length. I have wondered, this is another thing that came up yesterday. In ignorance, is the I of ignorance a negative term? Does the gno mean no? And does I make it negative, not knowing? I tried to look it up this morning in a dictionary of, a dictionary of etymologies, and it wouldn't tell me. It makes sense. Gno is gnosis, gnosis, and it certainly looks like it. And we're running into Giant Shiva, being the person he is listing Sanskrit ways of saying no, N-O, and there are some odd ones in there. One of them being N-O, which I had to hunt around in the Sanskrit dictionary to find that N-O meant no, in Sanskrit, which I'd never seen. And N-I means no, non, niswabhava. He brings up these things that make you think. So this made me think, I wonder if I of ignorance, it was a negative. Certainly made me think, why not? And it says that ignorance means not knowing, the etymology dictionary. But it didn't break it down to E, when it went into the Old French. Anyway, whatever is established by way of its own nature must be inherently established. Okay, that is, be able to set itself up under its own power. Wow, that's how we see things. We see things as having their own entity. Just in raw sensation. Everything has its own thing. Due to which it is contradictory for it to rely on causes and conditions. That the way things are presented to our own senses suggests that it couldn't rely on causes and conditions. Tat tat prapya yadutpanam notpanam tat swabhavata. Just remember the message of the doctrine Cherokee doctrine, didarte. Cherokee doctrine, Cherokee, dumb, Cherokee, dumb, dumb, and really message. When His Holiness came to America, what did this guy from North Carolina who made a button? The, not motto, the dependent arising, the Buddha's motto, the Buddha's, it's a great button. Motto? I think. Yeah. Dumb then would have to be motto. What? Did you have a word? The Buddha's slogan. Yeah. The Buddha's slogan said dependent arising. And I don't know which one was in the middle and which one was on the outside. Dependent arising. The Buddha's slogan. When this is, that arises, because this is produced, that is produced. You see, this is the type of thing, the precious garland, just under it. This is what Bhava Viveka, my Bhava Viveka, since you put Bhava Viveka on me. This is what he, the focal doctrine that he wanted to cite, which is, really fantastic. From Nagarjuna. He didn't cite Tata Prapya Yadut Panam Not Panam Tat Subhavata, but he quoted Nagarjuna's precious garland. How fantastic. Due to the condition of ignorance, there are compositional activities. Must be tujeke le. Ah! Such fantastic stuff. Like light from the production of a flame. It's really like light from the production of a flame. Like, how are you going to make the difference between light and the production of a flame? But how are you not? The flame's here, the light's there, but also the light is with the flame. And yet the flame isn't over here with the light. It's a real, almost conundrum, isn't it? A doer arises in dependence on a doing. So we who have been reading, it takes us back. It throws us right back to the second chapter. A goer arises in dependence on a going. And a going arises in dependence upon just that goer. Except for that, we do not see a cause for their establishment. When are we going to get back to the second chapter? His Holiness forced me to include, the Uma Institute's projects are three of the great treatises. And he kept saying, Zashe, Nagarjuna's treatise on the middle. And so when I got back, I said, well, we're already doing that. So I made it 4. Rather, doer and doing are mutually dependent in terms of the attainment of their entities through conceptual imputation. Then Chandrakirti's commentary on Arya Deva's 400. Have you read all of the 400 with Gain Topke? Yes? Mm.
Yes.
That, so now you ought to do all of Chandrakirti's commentary with him. How much has Karen Lang done? That would be a huge task. She's done a lot. Yeah, that which has its own entity. Now this has to have something to do with your question. Here, that which has its own entity, its own being, inherent existence, its own power, or is just not contingent on others. I had to stretch to find some other word. In Tibetan, Shenla Rakmaleva. Rakmaleva. I don't have but it's a good translation, but it's not I was going to say it's not a word I use, but it's a good translation of Rakmaleva. But in spoken Tibetan, it's not a term I use in spoken Tibetan. Rakleba. But Rakle. But I needed to have another term. That means, more or less the same thing. Would be self-established. Is something, is my wonderful trackball. Can't see the ball. Fantastic trackball. Self-established. My arthritic hands. It really works for me. Is it self-established? No. But can you appreciate that we see it? As having its own entity, having its own being, inherently existing under its own power, not contingent on others, self-established. Wow, there's my trackball. Oh, I ought to buy another one. My trackball upstairs, it won't work. I had to use one of my old trackballs. Wow. Getting a hold of how we see things. However, all compounded things are dependent arisings. Things that have a dependent arising and do not come to be self-powered. Because they are produced contingent upon cause and conditions. All these are not self-powered, hence no things whatsoever have self. Inherent, that is, inherent existence. So self has two meanings, person, right? And inherent existence. Oh. So the note says we're going to get to his two citations of this quote in the Great Exposition of Special Insight after finishing. Okay? So we've hit our time limit. The gong is being gonged by the gonger. See you around.